Hey guys, Gate here with another character review for the brand new, never before seen physical attacker Ming, who is basically just memory lost Zeke isekai'd into China with newfound powers from Xuanwu, or the Black Tortoise, one of the four symbols of the Chinese constellation representing the north. So for simplicity's sake, I will be calling him Zeke from here on out. And as usual, the translations of all the names of his kit are done by me, so expect global numbers to be cope and localization to be worse. Farewellville. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe as usual so I can continue making videos like these. Weapon positioning. First and foremost, let's address the issue of weapon positioning that everyone is most concerned about. Looking back at all the weapons introduced in 3.0, Liu Huo and Yulan, they all have the ability to be main DPS while also being capable of off-field support, without being too specialized in either. Zeke is the same in this regard, with a balance of both DPS and support capabilities, which was the major trend in 3.0 weapons. Zeke has an extremely high on-field multiplier, and when paired with two support weapons, can deal decent damage. At the same time, he can also have a supported playstyle that leans more towards being a secondary DPS. In this mode, he primarily pairs with Gunonno, where Gunonno takes on the main DPS role, while Zeke spends less time on the field and focuses on burst damage before switching out. So which of these two playstyles is more practical? To answer that, let's dive deeper into the weapon mechanics. The core mechanics of Zeke's weapon are in his skills. When we open the skill panel, it's like when did the small essays in Tower of Fantasy turn into a whole thesis? But no worries, that's what I'm here for. When Zeke releases his skill, he absorbs nearby targets and deals 2,400% damage. Additionally, it increases physical damage by 30%. While using Zeke's weapon, he also gains Hyper Body within the totem. It's a functional skill that provides both damage, output, and buffs. Now, let's focus on the crucial part. After using the skill, a turtle totem is summoned in place. 4 pillars will appear around the totem, and every 0.6 seconds, these pillars will launch tracking black balls towards the character. When the balls touch enemy units, they deal 100% damage. Don't underestimate these balls, as their damage can surpass that of directly using the skill over time. At this point, the skill icon will refresh and transform into this crowbar looking thing without a cooldown. And no, Shocky mains, this does not trigger your reset. Our task here is to whack the balls back to the pillars by continuously spamming the skill, and illuminate the 4 pillars in the surrounding area. Once they are illuminated, the totem will be set, allowing Zeke to activate his Bankai mode, Selfless state. After the totem is set, we can enter the Selfless state by holding attack after dodging. It lasts for 25 seconds and enhances the next 3 basic attacks into an Execute. Execute can kill any non-boss unit and units with current HP less than 350,000 times Zeke's base attack, which means that regardless of how tough the mobs or elite monsters are, your daddy Zeke can still one-tap them. But what if the target is a boss or its HP exceeds the threshold? The skill description also got that covered. When encountering an enemy that cannot be killed, Execute transforms into a strike with 3000% multiplier, with 3 strikes amounting to 9000%. Since Selfless state has a built-in 200-second cooldown, it is not affected by external cooldown reduction or refresh. So it's crucial to make good use of this 9000% multiplier in actual combat. Make sure to stack buffs on the character, release it after the boss's shield is shattered, and time the burst well, or else the damage can be lost. As for the floors with mobs, you can start by using Selfless state to kill them off one by one, which will greatly improve both damage output and survivability. After using Execute 3 times, the character will automatically exit the Selfless state. Snakebite. After using the skill, Zeke automatically unleashes Snakebite on the unit with the highest HP hit. Players can understand this as lifesteal. It deals 300% damage to the target and restores 12% of Zeke's HP. Afterwards, we can also use the last hit of the normal attack combo and the dodge attacks to unleash Snakebite. This move doesn't require deliberate activation, just understanding it is enough. After being hit by Snakebite, the target triggers Snake Chain, which is the mechanism for the next skill. Snake Chain. The Snake Chain can be thought of as soul damage, just like Fenrir's first skill, where a soul is summoned to deal double damage. The concept of the Snake Chain here remains the same, except that the transfer damage is now reduced to 30% and the number of targets increases from 1 to 4, disappearing after leaving combat. It's important to note that this mechanic also applies when Zeke is switched to the background, which was one of the reasons why Zeke can serve as a sub DPS. The main DPS can still inflict damage through the snake chain, and the damage elemental type transferred is the same as that of the foreground DPS weapon. Does this remind you of a rainbow team? Don't worry, we'll discuss that later. East winds. Actually, this mechanic is not important at all, or you could even say it's not very useful. To put it simply, it counts the number of snake bites triggered, and damage is calculated as 35% multiplied by it, and dealt when Zeke's skill is cast the next time, while resetting the count. The multiplier is very low and can be basically ignored. Finally, there's also an exclusive passive just like the 3.0 weapons. Huge multipliers, scales off of all your stats, even more multipliers when mixing elements, but cannot be buffed, setting a high damage floor. Zeke's is called Armor Break Let Go. After hitting a target with the skill, it causes a bleeding effect. It lasts for a whole 30 seconds, and in actual combat we can basically maximize this damage by just improving our overall stats. Weapon stars and pull suggestions. Let's start by discussing the stars at which the weapon can be used. Zeke can be used even at 0 stars, and both as a main DPS and sub DPS. However, after testing, Zeke performed better as a main DPS. Now, some may wonder if it's important to have Zeke at 1 star, since previously, weapons would undergo a drastic change from 0 to 1 star. So let's take a look at the effects of each star. At 1 star, Zeke's weapon adds an additional 100% damage after inflicting Grievous. Currently, this effect mainly benefits Gunonno, who actively applies Grievous frequently. For other weapon combinations, the improvement can be considered negligible. In situations where Gunonno is paired, Gunonno needs to be the main DPS to benefit from this star. After testing, this star only results in around a 10% increase in damage compared to before, so the cost effectiveness of the 1 star upgrade for this weapon is relatively low. At 3 stars, after using East Winds and hitting the target, it can additionally put enemy units within the area into a snake chain. Similar to the previous weapons, think Rubilia 3 star, it means speeding up activation but doesn't have any significant impact. Unfortunately, it's not a survivability effect, and Zeke's survivability at low stars still feel lacking. At 5 stars, there is an improvement in survivability. After casting his skill, damage taken is reduced by 10% or 20% in solo play for 30 seconds. Those with the funds and skill issues can consider this star. Finally, let's discuss the effect of the 6 star. When there is only 1 target remaining, the damage transferred by the snake chain is increased from 30% to 80%. This is a visible improvement and greatly enhances Zeke's single target capabilities. Weapon team comps. Zeke's weapon design is quite impressive. It not only provides high on-field capabilities, but also takes into the account effects from switching to the sub DPS role. A simple team can be formed with Fiona plus Zeke plus any other weapon. It is preferable to have a mono team for optimal performance. If Fiona is not available, alternatives like Claudia or Lin are also viable options. Currently, Zeke is the best choice for the main DPS role, and other weapons should focus on providing damage boosts around Zeke. Now let's take a closer look at specific team comps. First, let's consider Zeke as the main DPS, paired with Gunonno and Fiona as support. At the start, use the syringe on Zeke and then switch to Fiona and Gunonno. After using their skills to provide buffs, you immediately switch out and back into Zeke while activating Maelstrom from Fiona. Zeke has a longer staying time on the field, so unless the enemy is small mobs that can be easily killed, it is not recommended to immediately activate his Selfless state. It is recommended to wait for 1 rotation before activating it and make sure Zeke has all the buffs stacked. After that, Zeke can focus on normal attacks while Gunonno and Fiona provide intermittent buffs. All 3 weapons can be used even at 0 stars, but in actual combat, Zeke will face noticeable survivability issues, so it's recommended to have at least 1 star in Gunonno for the shield. Next, let's consider Gunonno as the main DPS. Compared to Zeke as the main DPS, Gunonno's survivability will be much better. However, as we saw earlier, there's a significant damage difference at lower stars. Here, you can choose who to be the main DPS based on the actual combat situation. The 3rd position remains Fiona. The rotation for this setup is similar to the previous one, but this time use the syringe and Maelstrom skill on Gunonno, who will have a longer staying time on the field. It's recommended to have both Zeke and Gunonno at least 1 star, with a 1 star Gunonno providing survivability and 1 star Zeke enhancing Gunonno's main DPS capabilities. For the remaining weapons, Claudia and Umi, the strategy is the same. Use their skills and then switch out. Both A fully starred Claudia and a 3-star Umi can provide more damage than a 0-star Gunonno supporting Zeke. Because the main DPS in physical teams tend to stay on the field for a long time when choosing support weapons, it's essential to select weapons with longer lasting buff effects, which makes short buff duration weapons like Tsubasa ineffective. Rainbow team comps. Lastly, let's discuss rainbow teams. Since 3.0, rainbow teams have risen in prominence. There is no absolute domination of mono teams over rainbow teams in terms of damage anymore at the low end of the meta. Here, we will focus on 2 weapon combinations for demonstration purposes. The first combination consists of Liu, Yulan, and Zeke, all 3 being 3.0 weapons. Players who tend to pull in every banner will have the advantage here. Without specifically stacking stats, this combination offers smooth rotation, simple gameplay, lower skill floor, and less survival pressure. At low star levels, this setup can be compared to a physical mono team. Liu takes on the main DPS role, relying on the core passive of the 3.0 weapons. The gameplay involves using the skills of Yulan and Zeke whenever available, and then giving the longest field time to Liu to trigger her passive. Players who have all the characters can give this combination a try. Generally, there won't be issues with damage in most content. The second combination is composed of Zeke, Yulan, and Fiona. The difference between Yulan and Zeke as the main DPS is not significant, so you can choose who takes the main DPS role based on the character's investment, with Fiona providing support in this team. After stacking buffs, Fiona can exit the field, and then you can use either Yulan or Zeke for continuous DPS. The rotation and gameplay are similar to the previous combination. Apart from the aforementioned teams, there are many other team compositions that can be incorporated into a rainbow team with Zeke. For example, Alice and Yulan can be paired with Zeke, or a team with double Altered and Zeke can also work. The key is to follow the strategy of having 2 supports and 1 main DPS. Matrices. Zeke and the rest of the 3.0 matrices are all semi-bound matrices, meaning Zeke must be present in the team to trigger some of their effects. However, in the current version, starting a physical team with Zeke and obtaining these matrices is a viable long-term investment. Even at 0 stars, they provide an 18% physical attack and 28% final damage boost. In combat, Zeke's passive will continuously trigger the matrices without the need for deliberate stacking, making them quite good. Free-to-play players who don't have the resources to pull for limited matrices need not worry. Give 2-piece Samir, Shiro, or Crow to Zeke, and for the remaining 2 supports, equip background matrices. In a physical team, a fully upgraded 2-piece Samir, Shiro, or Crow can completely compensate for the absence of a 0-star limited matrices. As for players who are willing to spend, they can bring any relevant matrices they have, such as Gunonno matrices, Fiona matrices, Umi matrices, or Zeke's own matrices. For free-to-play players without limited matrices, they can consider using Scylla and Habola from the gachapon machines in Miroria. However, since we are already in 3.0, it is best to acquire some limited matrices to avoid a significant gap in character DPS. In conclusion, Zeke as the new powerhouse for the 3.0 physical team has all the core mechanics of the weapon on his skills. However, the majority of the damage still comes from his normal attacks. In combat, there's a significant delay between skills and normal attacks, and Zeke can be somewhat fragile without the 1-star Gunonno. Zeke excels at clearing mob floors as he can instantly eliminate 3 enemies at the beginning, significantly reducing the pressure on survival and DPS. For new players, relying on the execute mechanic in the open world can also provide a great experience, and the overall cost of the team is relatively low. That's it for our physical daddy Zeke. If you have any questions, feel free to come over to my Twitch channel or join my Discord, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, and see you in the next video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already.